Hi, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Neighborhood News. Welcome back, Carlos.
Exactly. It's Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, Channel 95. We're back for one more show of the Neighborhood News. If you are watching the show and it's not a Tuesday night, it's because you already know you're watching a repeat show. So look for our new show next Tuesday at 7 o'clock at night. You can look our show too on YouTube and on our Facebook page.
Exactly.
For the Portuguese community, sejam bem-vindos a mais programa das suas notícias da sua vizinhança. Nós estamos de volta novamente, Canal 95, para mais programa de notícias da sua vizinhança. Hoje temos convidados e nós vamos passar a falar com eles já em alguns momentos. John, today we have a special guest, and we want to have as much time we can with him.
Yep.
Next week we probably can update our community on events and
Sure.
stuff that the spring's coming around, and we definitely going to have a lot this spring and summer. But
Well, this is what's the number one controversial thing in Fall River? Pay as you throw, right?
yes.
And probably what's number two is probably the fire service.
Yes.
So, welcome, Chief Viveiros.
Because we already talked so much trash, or so much about trash,
Yeah.
today we're going to get a little serious and talk about that big and special department in our city, and definitely is the fire department.
Well, I'll start. Chief Viveiros, as you know, there was this whole controversy a couple of weeks back about the Globe station, and I think, and I personally didn't know when you shut down an engine, or I mean, obviously a station, but if you shut down an engine somewhere, what does that mean for us people that don't understand any of this?
You forgot to introduce our guest first.
Yeah. I did.
You did.
Okay.
I like to make him.
Today is different than back in July of last year,
Okay.
when we had 2 extra engine companies that are no longer open.
Mm-hmm.
So today, out of the 6 fire stations that we have, each station has an engine company, which is the one that carries the water.
Okay.
So if that engine company is closed, then that section of the city doesn't have any immediate response from an engine company that has water.
Okay.
So there's a delay for the next truck to come in to fight the fire.
So if there was, with the Globe station down, and you know that's through the maintenance, but even when they open up, if the truck is not there, so what would happen then? Would they come from Niagara? Is that how they?
If Niagara, if that truck is in quarters, they're not out on a call, that would be the next truck.
Okay.
If they're out on a call, then it goes to the next furthest station.
Okay. What would that be?
Depends who's.
Oh,
Depends who's not on a call.
So it could be that.
It could be the center. It could be the Flint.
Or would it ever be Commerce up in the north end? Or?
It has been as far as Stanley Street.
Okay. Okay. All right, yeah, it's a good question to know for sure. I know history, I've heard this, I was probably younger when this was about, but we used to have an FTE of over 300 in the fire department.
I believe in the 70s, they had a complement of around 300.
Okay.
And they ended up closing. I think there was, I could be wrong on this, but I think it was Purchase Street might have been where they closed, where the little theater is now, and
Okay.
it might have been another truck at the Globe or Stafford Road. I'm not sure. That's before my time, but
So were you in the fire department at that time?
no,
or
that was before me.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, I was just wondering what changed. I guess it's probably budgets, I gather. That's
Sure.
probably a big
Overtime,
part of
yeah,
it,
yeah.
and the overtime thing. So another controversial thing, since you brought it up, the overtime. If you could just explain, and I go fall on the chair, if you could just explain what, because I know there's a lot of questions that were asked before the council.
Right.
And sometimes it takes so long that I think you start phasing out when you're
Right.
when you're listening this in the audience. So as far as like now, how many people actually did we lose last year?
26 were laid off
Okay.
originally, and 3 were brought back almost right away. So
Okay.
technically
So
23, but they
23.
did lay off 26.
Okay. All right, so in order to have those 23 folks, the way that it was being handled is to have overtime. That's from what I had heard.
Well, the history of the overtime goes back to either 2002, 2003, somewhere in there. We used to have Scope 1, which was a ladder truck downtown, which was placed out of service, after they started, cutting manpower a little bit. And what they would do is to save on overtime. If we were short a guy or 2, you would close the truck down, and that would save overtime. You wouldn't replace that person with overtime. As time went on, they kept doing it year after year after year after year.
Yeah.
And the union, in helping the city out at times, kind of agreed that we'll help you out in these difficult financial times, and we'll do these rotational closings to save the city money in overtime.
Yeah.
So that's why the fire department would live within that overtime budget. You would spread it out, or you could foresee when, heavy periods of low manpower would be, and you could spread it out.
Yeah.
So then last year when we had the layoff, after we had the layoff, I took Mayor Flanagan around to every fire station, every shift. He went everywhere.
Yeah.
And in every station, everyone said, Mr. Mayor, what are we going to do? We know that the overtime budget is not enough. And he said, I'm telling you, we're not going to close any more trucks, and we're not going to close any stations. You've been cut enough, and this is how it'll be. So we would fill in on a man-by-man basis when we needed manpower, and we blew through the overtime in no time.
So it was basically replacing the 23 people that were gone. These other guys will work, and
That's correct. I mean, if we had the 23 or 26 men, we might have still had rotational closings, but we wouldn't have closed 2 trucks permanently.
yeah. Are there any statistics that show what we should have here? The number of firefighters comparable to other cities, and
Well, if you want to compare to cities of similar size, that's one thing. Fall River's unique in the layout of the land and, the layout of the neighborhoods. We could compare, maybe New Bedford, Lowell, similar types of cities. Of course, we got a lot of big hills here.
Yeah.
New Bedford's fairly flat.
yeah.
But, if you go comparable size, it varies. If I knew you wanted numbers, I
Yeah.
could have
No,
brought my
I just-
statistics. The one statistic that doesn't stand out, and I have these statistics, is the amount of overtime that the cities allocate to each department, and we're not even close. We're not even close.
So we're way over what they
We're
are.
way under what they have, and being down men. If you have the men, then the overtime goes down. If you don't have the men, then overtime has to go up, or then you have to run short. There's no other options.
And I remember there was this magic number that was going back and forth as to how many we should have according to fire standards, I guess. And was that number like 150, 160?
Well, before me, Chief Sylvia and the union and the mayor, they all got together and they all agreed they could operate the department with 200 men.
Yeah.
And then the Mayor Flanagan, agreed with the union. He would try to bring back manpower incrementally. I think the first one would have been coming up next July, and then you'd go up, 20, maybe 20. I think it was 175. We're at now to 185. Then that number would go up again, and then it finally would come up to 200.
So as far as though the state are they at one, this fire standard? I think I've heard that, but it's still, the fire department doesn't think that is the safe level. But is it at like 160 or something like that? Is that the number that was thrown out before? That according to the standards, you can't go below this number of folks, and
No standard I'm aware of.
Okay.
That'll say that.
Okay. Okay then.
If I'm here. I'm just this 70-page release really have kept me. Every time that I have an hour, I go through these numbers because I love numbers. I love to look at numbers. I guess it comes on a family. My dad is a bookkeeper. He's 72. He's still around these numbers.
Wow.
And my younger brother, my younger sister, it's a bookkeeper. A brother under me, it's a bookkeeper. I think I then went for this just because I didn't want to live my life the way my dad was living, around numbers all day long.
Yeah.
So, but first let me start saying this. I have a lot of respect for the fire department. And I don't care what people say, opinion that people have. I have nothing bad to say about the fire department. They've been good to me. The Flint station has been amazing to my neighborhood. I reach out to them like I reach out to the senior center, to the school department, to the schools. I reach out to them, and they never turn their back on me. They're always there. They, like I said to the city council there on that night, they come out. They help the neighborhood cleanups. They even help fundraisers inside the station to put an event for the kids for the park. So I only have good things to say about the fire department, special the ones that work on my neighborhood. For the whole city, I really don't have nothing bad to say about the department. The second thing that I want to say is that people need to realize that the fire, that's not the only thing they do. Oh, because we have one fire a month. It's a lot going on in the city every day. Like every other department starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, work. The fire department starts to the same thing, and like you mentioned, sometimes it's shifts of 24 hours. But they respond to car accidents. They respond to false alarms, which you probably could answer like 5 a day. 5 alarms, because many times we driving around and we can hear the fire trucks going around. Sometimes those are just calls,
Yeah.
but it's not actually fires, thank God.
Yeah.
But here comes my question. When you got a call from a false fire, is somebody responsible to pay for that call?
The city passed an ordinance that if we go on a nuisance call, so, if you get called on an alarm to whatever, a mill, let's say, we use a mill, we go there on an alarm, and it wasn't accidental. It was, something's wrong in the system, there's an electrical problem, the fire alarm box, there's something wrong with it, they can charge the owner a false alarm fee. If we go back again, it's another fee. If we keep going, then it keeps going up incrementally.
Okay.
So they passed that ordinance, and it's been in effect for a while.
Okay. The reason I'm saying that was because sometimes you got called like twice to that high rise on Pleasant Street.
Right.
It's unbelievable the many times that I'm on Pleasant Street. It's where they go. I know where they're going.
Right.
I know exactly where they're going. So I mean, I don't know. It's been. I mean, you don't want to let me lie. You know that how many times you got called there.
You said before we get called. If someone's not sure who to call, they call the fire department.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what it is. There's water leaking in the apartment upstairs, they call the fire department. Who else would you call?
Yeah.
And
A plumber.
No, they don't. They call the fire
Call the
department.
fire department. And I have to say, this it's two good experiences, thank God, that I had with the fire department. About 8 years ago, my carbon monoxide went off. We probably never heard at that time about carbon monoxide alarms. But the year before mine, or 2 years before mine, a whole family died in New Bedford because of carbon monoxide. We heard that on the news, and we heard about the carbon monoxide. And I went and I bought the carbon monoxide. Back then it was plugged, and it has the batteries to back out. Every 6 months we used to return to take the battery, to put new batteries on, and we let that sit for 2 years there. One night we got home from a fundraiser, and I put the girls to bed. My oldest one, she was probably 8, 9 years old. The other one was younger. I go down to the basement, and that thing goes off. And I tell my wife, just disconnected that, because that keeps going up. And my wife, before she disconnects, she sees the numbers keeps jumping back and forth. And she said, this is something wrong with this. So what we do, we call the fire department. So, we don't even know, maybe this thing is not even working, but that's supposed to do that. And they said, no, ma'am, we are on our way. And they got there. As soon as he walked on my house, they have it detected. That thing went crazy. And he said, somebody's asleep? I said, yeah, my 2 girls are asleep. Let's wake them up right now. Open all the windows, open everything. And I was like, well, what's going on? Well, what's happening? Oh, it's the carbon monoxide. So we ended up at the hospital at Charlton. Me and my wife, we took the blood test instead of putting the kids through, because that's what they said. If you have it, they're going to have it too. So let's put you adults through the needle. So we did, and we had 66%. And we were in the house 45 minutes.
Wow.
This whole thing happened in 45 minutes. And I was told, and I've been told by the fire department, that carbon monoxide, and the answer of the fire department that fast, they knew how to do and what to do as soon as they got in the house, saved my whole family life.
Yeah. Good.
So here, and I'm talking about an experience that I had probably 8, 9, 10 years ago. Wow. And I will never forget, you will never forget that experience. They got there, they rolled my daughters in blankets. They gave my daughters they still love it, the bears. Yeah. They give my daughters the bears,
cool.
the toys, and my daughters love that until today.
Yeah.
Cool. So I only have, this is to add in top, what is the fire department? Yeah. It's not just a regular firefighter that goes there, works for 24 hours and go home, and he don't care about the community, and he wants his paycheck. So this is one. Very quick, another one. 2 weeks ago, the alarm went off on the Vault School.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know I have nothing, nobody's cooking anything, We don't even have gas connected there, but I don't know what happened. So it was a false alarm. The following day, I went by the Flint station and I said, I just have, I know it was a false alarm, but I only have a question. Those buildings supposed to have a key on the box. So I want to know if it's a key there, because he was going to break in the door.
Yeah.
I didn't find out the next day why. They were going to break in the door so they could get in, but my janitor lives right across the street. And he bought the key and he opened the building for them. But why was not the door open? And they took the time, they came down to the school with me. They had a hard time to open the box. He said that key, it's locked on that box probably for 10 years.
Wow. And
he had he had to put the spray, he had to bang on the door of the box to open to get the key.
Yeah.
And for sure was the people's information emergency numbers there, which now I have my number there in case of something happens and a couple more people. But again, I went to the fire department. They didn't have to do that. They took his time to come down to the school to open the box. And so it's just to say that, they really do a lot for our community.
I was going to say, I want to know why you didn't get fined.
I don't know that yet. So you just answered a personal question.
They do it for nuisance, not just for, usually for one time.
Oh.
It's when you go repeatedly, it's the kind of get the owner to take care of the problem.
Yeah. So, hey, we have to pay, it's not the problem. But it's just the fact that it happened, they went there, they took care of the problem. The following day, I approached the fire department, which everybody should do the day after, so they could be on the same step with the fire department. I took time, I went there and I said, you know, it's supposed to be a key. I want to make sure it's a key there that you guys can get inside the building when you need to get inside. And somebody drove to the school with me, opened the box, put all my new information in the box, make sure the key was there, and that's it. So, and for all of that, I could stay here the half an hour talking about the fire department and convincing the people that we need to be responsible with the fire department, and we need to give the tools they need to work, because they're not here to hurt anybody, they're here to help us. So.
With that being said, and the one thing at the fire was the apparatus, and I think no matter how many people you had, that would have been a concern. So, are you guys? Because I know with the police department, they had put in, for capital improvements like new police cars, stuff like that. So, do you guys use that same formula, and there's just no money in the capital?
We did put in for new trucks, and I would think every chief before me has been putting in, and the city makes that decision to not purchase. So
To do that, yeah.
now there's talk that they're going to put it out for bond to get new trucks. So I mean, they're going to have to do something soon.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, that's the whole bonding thing. I know is a big deal right now. So
I mean, communities can't afford to buy. Well, most communities can't afford to buy 3, 4. But the ideal plan is to not buy them all at once. Is to buy one every so many years.
Absolutely.
That then you can afford instead of buying a whole fleet. Then they're all old at the same time again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
I think with anything that's been the problem in the city is that we never invest in anything. I mean, just talking, to go off track a little bit, Durfee High, I was the first class to graduate. I started there in 78, left in 82, and the school's 39 years old and we have to build a new one because we don't maintain these things. And I think that's a big part of it, all these problems we're having.
And let me ask you this about equipment, because we know that you're short in people, but about equipment, how you think that you are in equipment? It's fair. It's some.
No, the biggest.
That you like to change in some equipment.
The biggest problem is our breathing apparatus right now. They're so old. They're considered obsolete under the NFPA codes. We put in for a grant last year. We didn't get it. We put in for a grant this year, which to me was more favorable for the chance of getting it this year, but we haven't heard back yet. So if we don't get it, then maybe the city might want to group that in.
That is something that you can get money, like grant-wise, separate from hiring people.
Yeah, that's through the federal government.
Okay, so
you can apply for equipment, and that's one thing you can apply for. I guess we didn't meet the criteria, last year. To me, it looked good this year.
Yeah.
So we're just waiting for word on whether we got it or not.
Okay. So, but we did apply.
We did apply.
Okay.
Right. We're just waiting to hear if we're going to get it or not.
Chief, if I could ask you two other quick questions that have been pretty controversial, is that 24-hour shift for the firemen. Is this like a common thing amongst fire departments in Mass, would you say?
As far as I know, I think the majority of them work that shift.
To do that, okay. So would you think that it helps, by having that shift, or would it be better to have a 12-hour shift where you'd have people, you'd have more people to kind of spread around? Has that been something?
It doesn't spread anyone around. I never worked the 24-hour shift because I was out of the company before it was implemented.
Yeah.
If you talk to the guys, they like it. Yeah. I know back when it first started, it did show a decline in sick time.
Okay.
The guys will tell you they feel they have more time with their families. When they come to work in the morning, they know they're there all day, and it's a different attitude. We're here all day.
Yeah.
We're not working 10 hours today and then tomorrow. Now we're going to work tomorrow night, because that's how it used to work.
Yeah.
They don't have anything bad to say.
So before they had like 10 hours a day for 4 days a week?
You'd work 10 hours today, and then you'd work 14 tomorrow night.
Oh, okay.
Then you'd have a day off, then you'd work 10 the next day, and then a 14 the day after that.
Okay. So that was
So, you
like
know,
4 to 5 days then, roughly, or
it
4
was
days?
4 days a
4
week,
days.
right.
Okay.
The whole average of hours that you work a week is 42 hours. That's what it ends up coming out to.
All right, okay. And just the one last thing, and I know this was something, and I had told you before we got on about, you know, I work for HR, working in HR offices, the unlimited sick time. And I think for any business now, it's unheard of. I think even in the feds or the state, I think it's just towns that happens with public safety folks. But I think people probably look at that, and I go back and forth with it, that if you give somebody something unlimited, there's going to be more abuse. Is that something that you?
It doesn't show that.
Okay.
I wish if I knew you wanted that statistic, I
Yeah.
could have got you this.
No, I mean, just stuff that's
We just did it. We just
Yeah.
did the statistics. And it might have been the union president who called me and says, hey, did you realize this many guys have never been out sick in the last 3 years? I forgot the number. I don't
Yeah.
even want to guess.
But is it a high number, you think?
It's fairly high.
Okay.
I can tell you I haven't been out sick in, I don't know, 13 years.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys that
do
can
the
tell you
same.
that.
I
But
think, I think that's the information that the people are looking for. Those that don't agree with the 24-hour shifts, I think that's the only reason they are against, because they think that it's more chances for them to get
Right.
sick working so many straight hours than not working. So if it can be proved that's not the case, I think they're not going to have nothing to you know,
Yeah.
to
Well, I
to
think
be
with
against it.
anybody, you know what I mean, if you hear somebody has unlimited, which means anything, you know what I mean?
We have rules in place. I mean,
Yeah.
you just can't call out sick and stay out as long as you want. That's
Yeah.
not how it works.
Yes. Okay.
We have rules.
So do you
You've
have,
gotta
like,
follow those rules.
3 days you're out, they have to bring in a sick note or something?
After a week, you're
Okay.
considered long-term. Now you have to prove what was wrong with you. You know, you got to have a doctor's note that says you can't work, or you know, you're coming back. But there's rules in place. I can send them to a doctor. There's rules in place.
Okay, all right.
What may drive a statistic for the average?
Yeah.
To me, not someone who broke his leg
Yeah.
and he's out for 8 weeks. It's the guy who calls out sick today.
Yeah.
And then a month from now, he calls out sick.
Yeah.
2 months from now, he calls out sick. And he's only out 1 or 2 days. Then at the end of the year, he was out 10 days.
Yeah.
To me, he may be the guy that is abusing, not
Yeah.
the guy who broke his leg or
Yes,
sprained his ankle,
Yeah.
and he's out, you know,
Yeah,
for 3 or
yes.
4
I
weeks.
hear
So,
you. I hear you.
but the average among the guys, it's fairly low.
Okay.
And what most guys would tell you is, if they were given an amount of sick days every year, well, it's something you're giving me, then I'll use them.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I see what you're
Well,
saying.
I think we
That was quick.
going out of time. I personally want to thank the fire department, and I want to thank you for coming.
Yeah, I
and
appreciate it.
you guys doing a great job, and you have my support.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope
Nice to
that
hear
we
that.
get some information out there for everybody to answer some of the questions too.
Sure.
Thanks for coming, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I see you next week.
Next week.
7 o'clock. We'll be here with one more guest, and probably on the following week we're going to go over this list, because I want to talk to people about this list.
All right.
So see you next week. Thank you.
Have a good night now.